We are live. The Hobby with Cage, episode 42. And we got DappzSports with us. Welcome to the show.
What is up, Cage? Good to be here.
I'm happy to have you. It's a different type of guest for me. I bring on a different type of audience. My Spotify and Apple Music and that kind of stuff. They tell me my age range skews north of 30. And I have a feeling, you are you're under 30.
I'm 35, Cage. So
Wow.
yeah, people think I'm 25, but
I never would have guessed.
Yeah, I'm 35, and we're both New Yorkers. So I think I might peg right into where your audience is. Actually.
Wow. And yet here I am thinking that, you treat the hobby a little differently than, the crusty old folks like myself who just want to open 80s junk wax. No.
So I think I'm in a prime position to speak to the kids and to speak to the old crusty guys too with where my age is at.
Yeah. I like it. So you have a different way of attacking this. Videos, right? You put out a ton of video content, right? So I'll just jump right into it, right? So if you had an elevator pitch to the people out there in the hobby, the 30 seconds, like, here's what I believe about the hobby, and this is why I make the content I do, what would it be? Like, what are your thoughts overall?
How much fun it is. So what DappzSports is showing you in these videos is when you rip a pack of cards, when you rip a box of cards, we want to bring you through that experience, right? Because anyone who has never ripped a box or a pack or hasn't ripped one in 10 or 20 years, this is what it's like. And this is what you spend. And sometimes you're up and sometimes you're down. But the thrill of the chase is why we all do it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, right? So it's fun and thrill of the chase and up and down. So when you first started talking, I hear it's about the fun. But then when we end it, it's about the money. Because up and down is not really fun. Up and down is monetary. Up and down is, okay, I put this much in and I got this much out. Maybe I got more out. Maybe I got less out. Is part of what you're saying that even if you're down, you're at least providing fun for the folks, the people who are involved are at least having fun? Is it an entertainment type of thing?
Well, I think we could break this down to, let's just go to the true collector, right? You're ripping boxes or packs because you collect.
Yep.
The way you know you're up or down or that you're happy or not is you've hit a rare card, which is associated to a value. So you can't know joy and pain. They both don't exist. And you can't know if the card you hit is worth anything or that it brings you joy. Listen, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of cards that are pretty that we enjoy and they're not worth $1. Right? Or they're worth $5 or they're worth $10. But if you ask, 10 people who collect, 9 out of 10 are going to tell you they're chasing a particular card or a particular player, and they're not doing it just for free, right? Yep. You're spending your hard-earned money on this stuff because you think, hey, I might get equal value. I might get half the amount, but I'm still happy because of the cards that I acquired. But you're not doing it just for free. And anybody who says that, I would like to have a long conversation with them.
All right. I mean, we can almost have it here. So here, not about for free. There are collectors out there who just say, hey, I just want my cards. I want to buy them and I don't care what they're worth. I mean, I don't know whether or not that's truthful or not, but here's my take, right? And I've done this a couple of times. I did one episode a while ago where, I said breaking is, akin to an unregulated casino. And I think we're going to see some changes in regulation and how the, how breaking is run and done. But more recently, I did an episode called Breaking Bad for the Hobby. That was a little play on the little, Heisenberg and Breaking Bad. But
love it.
Here's the thing. And I've had this conversation with a lot of people who break. I believe, and please, I want to hear the counterpoint from you. Tell me, how you either disagree or, how you tackle this, that it's bad if breaking just becomes a slot machine and people are putting $100 in a break, not caring about the card they hit, just caring about the value of that card. And if they happen to hit a card that is more than $100, more than what they're just going to sell that to have more money to get into the break. And if they happen to get less than 100, let's say they get a $30, they're going to sell that also to get that $30 back and put it towards getting another break to try to gamble, you name it. So when people are at a slot machine, they're not collecting the credit. They're not collecting that little form that comes out There's no asset, there's no card, there's no, collectible. It's just a matter of money in, money out, and hoping at the end of the day, you have more money than you put in. The problem with that is with cards, ultimately, if that's the goal, what cards are ever worth anything? If people are just trying to get in, get out, and no one is actually buying into these things to own the asset, to own the card, what does that say for the long-term value of what's being broken?
Well, I would equate the hobby to the stock market as opposed to a casino. And there's people who invest in stocks long term, and there's people who day trade, right? And they both need to exist for the entire thing to run, right? So when you ask about the slot machines and the gambling, the only question I pose to anybody who says breaking is gambling, I would say, what is the difference between buying a box of cards and chasing it? You don't know what's in that box of cards. You buy a Prism hobby box for close to $1,000. You could have $500 after. You could have $1,000. You could have $100. You could have 10. You could have 2,000. So when you say, listen, when you break it down into random teams, and there's that random element of chance in a break, sure, I could understand the argument. But if we're talking about a pick your team break, for example,
or pick your player,
or pick your player, even better. I don't understand. There is no difference to me in breaking in a pick your team break and buying a box of cards. And I would argue that as a collector, everybody who buys a Prism hobby box, and we're just using Prism for the sake of this conversation, you're probably chasing one player or a couple players, right? You have in your mind, you're like, I'm going to rip this box and I'm hoping to get whoever you're a fan of, whether it's a player or a team. So if a Prism hobby box is $1,000, and let's use this year's draft class or this past year's draft class as an example, it's $1,000. In a break that we would run, the Niners would be about $100. So if you, as a collector, only want Brock Purdy, right, and you have to spend $1,000 on this box to chase the Brock Purdy you want, what DappzSports is going to offer is, hey, you could buy the Niners 10 times, and you're only going to get Niners cards, and you're only a fan of the Niners, and now you have just increased your chances 10x. You get Brock Purdy cards in 10 boxes. So from a strategy point, even as a collector, even if you don't want to sell the Brock Purdy cards, why would you spend $1,000 on a Prism hobby box to chase Brock Purdy when you could spend the same amount of money and get Purdy's across 10 boxes?
I think the pick the player is a great argument for it, but even forget about Purdy because he's the one everyone's chasing. What if you don't like Purdy? What if you are looking for somebody else? What if you're looking for, the tight end that the Raiders drafted, right? And you don't want to buy the $1,000 Prism box, or you can't, right? You can buy the Raiders in a break and no one cares because the Raiders don't really have any great rookies this year. Or you can buy that tight end, or you could buy that wide receiver and pay a fraction of the box price just to get that. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to get it. There's still a gamble to it, right? But if you really want it, you just buy the card.
But my whole point is that there's a gamble in sports cards. Just ripping any box. If you make that argument towards breaking, you have to be able to say, okay, well, then all of sports cards are a gamble too. So I'm totally cool with saying both or neither, right? But you can't have it when it's convenient in conversation to say, well, breaking's bad because, okay, well, then sports cards are bad. Oh, well, then breaking's good because, okay, well, then sports cards are good, right?
Because so I think the best thing you said was, the hobby does better with both, right? I mean, we kind of get into this investor versus collector, flipper. I mean, some people are gamblers and some people aren't. And I guess that, the best way of saying it is that just like you need day traders, you need people to hold for the long term who, want to just keep the stock and get their dividend. You know what I mean? That's kind of the best argument that I've heard. All right. So we've clarified that. I say breaking bad, you say breaking good. I like it. It's it's good stuff. Tell me about your content, right? Because your content's a little bit different than what everybody else has out there. Do you take a cue from like Twitch streamers and like YouTubers who are video gamer? It's colorful. It's funny. You got a lot of the twins. You got a lot of the boxes. He spent this much on whatever it is. I will give you one prop, and then I want to talk about. I want to hear you say, explain kind of what's the thought process behind it. But just as many videos are out there with somebody hitting something good. I see from you guys videos of this is a $200 box. Here's what we got, and it's like $15 out of it. So it's not sugarcoating it, which I do like, because that's one issue that I have. I think, new entrants come in here, and obviously the biggest videos are going to be the ones that are hit. So when you start, you Google or put in YouTube like box breaks, you're going to see the one of ones get hit. You're going to see these massive cards get hit. There's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, you want to advertise your best stuff, right? Casinos advertise that we just had a jackpot here. You go to a 7-Eleven and they advertise right on the door. Someone just hit the $3 million scratch off. I mean, it's fair to do that. You're not going to advertise the crap, but I think you do a good job of showing both. So talk to me about your content and why I think it's a little different than most.
Yeah, well, I think as consumers, you and I have been to the movies over the last 20, 30 years, right? And what works in movies most of the time is the truth, right? And outside of, your superhero movies where we're living in a fantasy land, but a lot of the best movies that they make are based on a true story, right? So there has to be a degree of truth in what you're filming. So we've been filming content around sports cards every day for almost 3 years now. So what we realized pretty early, we had the same mindset. Hey, people want to see the big hits. But one day we were in Target and there was a score hanger and $9.99 and nobody wants score, right? But we decided let's just film it because it's not much of an investment to make this video. Let's see how it does. And what we realized is that we got more views on this particular video where we lost than a bunch where we won. And we go, well, if people enjoy watching us lose and win, it doesn't really matter. And again, back to truth, that's the truth of ripping cards, is that you're not going to win every single time.
Yep.
And you lose more often than you win, right? So I think when you're telling people the truth and you're showing what can happen, and sometimes you hit a big Joe Burrow downtown out of a blaster, it's few and far between, but most of the time, you might be down. Yep. And the thing is that the true collectors, like you said earlier, they don't really care if they're down. They love the cards, right? So for us, we just want to create content where we show people an entry point into the hobby where, hey, you could spend $200 on a box and you can only have $5 worth of cards. But if you watch our videos, the reason we all do this is, hey, you could also be up money. And do you enjoy the rip of the cards is the question, right? Because if you
I like
don't,
what you're saying. I'll tell you what it makes me think of. It makes me think of people play video games and they stream them and they get a lot of views. People have the mask on and they're playing, but you know what gets more views? The virtual reality fails. When dad puts on the thing and they run into a wall and it's like, wow, this guy, he just broke the coffee table, and those get millions of views. It's almost like that because it's honest, right? Not everybody is, a streamer and ninja and whatever the heck, most people are putting on the virtual reality and running into a wall or breaking their television. That's what we get with some of those videos. And it's funny because, I'm sure there's a split on this. Recently, Fanatics is doing a lot of breaking, and we're seeing, Kobe 1-of-1 get hit, a cut auto. And we're seeing, the Mike Trout 1-of-1 got hit. This is all in the last month, right? A Jackie Robinson cut auto 1-of-1 hit. And, my fear is people watch that because those are going to get blasted. Those are going to be out there in every channel. And you're like, all right, well, I'm going to go buy that box for a couple $100 and I'm going to get a Jackie Robinson. No, you're going to open that box and you're going to get some third-year no-name from the Orioles and be like, what the heck is this? And at least you're showing that.
Well, listen, part of our responsibility at DappzSports too with entertainment that we put out through content is education, right? So the way that DappzSports started was actually me creating YouTube videos in my bedroom, explaining to people, hey, I bought this card for this price and I sold it for this price and this is my profit. But I also did it with my losses. I said, hey, and then I explained, I timed the market wrong on this one, right? This guy got injured. That's why I lost. This guy got traded. This guy is no longer performing at the level that he was once performing at, right? And if you have an audience and you have a fan base, you can't just be, shoveling lies or just everything is great all the time. Like that's not how you're going to resonate with an audience. And listen, we make mistakes. We're human beings. We are, not without flaws. So I make mistakes. I share them with you. I hope that you can learn from my mistakes, right? And I think that's what a lot of educational content does. And I think that if the hobby is to 10x, like everybody wants to talk about all the time, we need to be putting out educational content that helps people enter the hobby at an affordable price point where they don't have to put up $1,000 and be down 900 on a box, right? You can enter a break for 29 bucks. You can enter a break for 19. You can start by only buying your home team, which is the Ravens or the Raiders, like you said. And the example we used earlier where the Niners are $100, if you're buying the Ravens and they're $19, I mean, you could get a lot of Ravens cards out of Prism Hobby across 20 breaks and still be at half the price of the box.
So let me ask you this. Any community building around the breaks, or when you get too big, you just can't do it? And I'll explain what I mean, and then I'll let you run with it, right? I think one of the positive things that can get glossed over with breaks is you get to know the people who are breaking with you. And I mean, I think a smaller breaker, maybe a mom and pop, might be better equipped to do this than somebody who's got a huge amount of volume. But, let's say there's 10 people in the break, 4 of them, did well. 4 of them did okay. 2 of them did terrible. But those 2 who did terrible, and because they've bought from you before, that they usually buy the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? They're a Cavs fan. And you happen to have, somebody let you keep stuff. You got inventory. You happen to have a bunch of Okoros. You have a bunch of Darius Garlands. You can throw those in for that person so that they don't feel like they were one of the 2 who got shafted in your break. It's a customer service type of thing. That happened at all? Because to me, that's a cool part of breaking that gets lost in the headlines of casinos, right? If you build up a community, you get to know who's breaking with you, get to know your customer. It's sort of like when I go to, a restaurant near me and they throw in a bottle of Diet Coke when I buy the food, right? Any of that in what you do?
Absolutely. So we had a guy years ago who big Lions fan, and he spent probably the most money I've ever had one person spend with us. And I went on, I went to my local mem shops and I found this Barry Sanders signed jersey framed. I mean, he was spending a lot of money, and I just sent it to him. And I just said, hey, thanks for ripping with us, right? No strings attached. I sent it as a surprise. I didn't tell him. And the messages I got back from that were more than I could have even anticipated. You really know how to treat your customers. Thank you so much. You don't know how much this means to me. Nobody else who I break with would send me something like this, right? So you're absolutely right with the Cleveland Cavaliers, analogy. We've done that over here. And, your more corporate hobby shops, I tend to think hobby shops are a little bit more personal. But if you walk into a hobby shop and you grab a box and you go home and you rip it yourself, the guys at the hobby shop don't know if you're down or up unless you tell them, right? So that's
I send pictures. I send pictures back to my guy. I'm like, look at this crap. I'm like, $225 for this. And he's like, that guy's good. He's going to do better. He's going to turn it around in the second half. I'm like, no, this is garbage. What are you doing? So he knows.
And maybe he could take care of you, the next time you're in there for sure. But, when you're in an office and you're shipping out every single day and you see somebody there every single night in your stream, right? I don't know how often you go to your hobby shop, but I imagine you have a lot of stuff to do, and you might get there once a week, once a month, whatever the number is, right? Whereas breaking allows you, I'm on the couch, I'm going to hop into a stream real quick, and you're effectively hopping into a store real quick, right? Just to browse around. Some people we have people who watch every night. They don't buy anything. And I appreciate them as much as I appreciate the guys who buy, because they keep our numbers up. They engage with the community. Not only, when new guys come in, they go, what's a break? My streamers don't always.
That's good. Right. That's actually good to hear. I mean, that there are people out there who are coming in and this is what they're doing. Do you take extra time on folks who say it's not? Do we educate them? Do we point them to content? Do people in the chat kind of fill them in? How does that work?
So that's where I was getting at, is that, of course, we want our breakers to constantly be educating everyone who's in our stream, but also we have to narrate the breaks too. So you can't have 2 voices speaking at once in one stream. So there's a tremendous amount of fans who answer questions in real time for people, which is community, right? That's where the community lies, on these live streams. And that's what I think that some people who have a negative connotation of breaking, they don't understand it fully. They don't understand the benefits, right? And that's okay. Listen, Rob from Burbank, I heard him the other day with Jeff Wilson talking about how the hobby is going to 10x, like you were talking about earlier. And of course, he's going to advocate for clean hobby shops. He has a beautiful shop. It's incredible, right? He does an incredible job at that shop. We aspire to have a shop like that.
Yep.
But of course, I'm going to advocate for what I do best because I know the value in what we do because I do it 24 hours a day, you know? So to each his own, right?
Listen, nobody's perfect. There are mistakes all around. I made a mistake, and we'll make sure everybody listening to this, if in case they haven't heard from me, they're under a rock. It's not Dappz, DAPS. It's DAPPZ. Why?
DAPPZ. So Dappz came from, it was a fraternity name that was given to me. I was, years ago, I went to SUNY Buffalo in New York. So it was just a name that was given to me and it stuck. And
Sammy
Buffalo.
Boom. I'm good. I can read people.
That was impressive, actually. Yeah. So sometimes I tell people Sammy and they're like, what is that? What, you know, they don't even know what that means.
That was not mine. I was in Sigma Phi Epsilon.
So some people get those nicknames or those pledge names and they just kind of go away. And then I ended up making a meme page a couple years after college that was just called Dappz, right? Because that was my name. And I created memes and I was creating content in LA for a couple of years. And that's what kind of helped me when I started DappzSports. I looked at everybody's pages on Instagram, and what I noticed was everybody posted pictures of their cards, and that was their Instagram page. And by the way, you should want to post pictures of your cards. You collect, it's important to you.
Cards are what it's about.
Right. And I'm not diminishing any of that. It's just I looked at that from the angle of how do I don't want to have another page like everybody else. How do I be unique in this space? And I noticed there was not a lot of video content, especially on Instagram. So YouTube, Sports Card Investor was around, and Pac-Man, and Card Collector 2, and Mojo, but I wasn't necessarily impressed with the amount of content that was being produced on Instagram, and I just felt like there was a huge opportunity to, give the hobby that content.
So was your pledge name? I like it. My pledge name. I don't know, after 1,000 and change episodes, I don't know whether I've ever told anyone my pledge name, and it's it's a little embarrassing. I'm a big guy. I was even bigger in college when I pledged. I also, because of pledging, I was rocking a full-on crew cut. Like I may have the best hair in the hobby. I'm covering it now with Bleecker Trading. I mean, Ryan's, Card Collector 2 has gotten a little crazy. Jesse Craig's got good hair. I think I got the best hair in the hobby. But at that time, I had a crew cut. I was rocking a full-on, buzz cut.
This is getting weirder and weirder. We're both from New York. I also had a crew cut.
But it was almost shaved. It was like a zero almost, right? My pledge name was Ox, which I might not be old enough for this. Stripes, an old Bill Murray, John Candy movie where they joined the army and I got the head shaved, the whole deal. And John Candy's, his name is Ox, Dewey Oxberger. That's how big I was.
That sounds like it would be a cool name to have, though, at a university for sure.
Ox. That was it. So that was my pledge name. So anyway, we move forward. We get off.
Wait, can I jump in and ask where Cage came from?
Sure. A story that's been told a few times, because it's not my name, although a lot of people think it is. And a very funny story at a Hofstra show a couple months ago. I brought my wife to a show, and one of the dealers went up, "Did you know his name's not really Cage?" to my wife, which is, she's like, "Yeah."
She's like, "No, I didn't know that."
I knew that. So the Reader's Digest, the short version of it is, a few years back, before the UFC had their Reebok deal in place where everybody shared and share alike with the Reebok sponsorship, fight kits were a big deal, and people were able to get basically almost NASCAR style sponsors on their shorts and shirts and you name it. And a couple of sponsors were not paying, a couple of fighters. I had a friend who's also a lawyer who was sponsoring fighters, and a couple of fighters came to him and said, "Hey, we have some problems trying to get our sponsors to pay." We helped them. I started Cage Lawyers, thinking we were going to help the fighters unionize, and it was going to be this big thing. I even got a trademark on the phrase "never fight alone." Pretty cool. And so this was going to be a big thing. And then we helped a couple of fighters actually get out of their contracts, not from the UFC, trying to get them in the UFC. But then the Reebok contract happened, and basically like everybody was a Reebok, and that was all you had on, and there was no more like, Ricky Bobby style of advertising on, on people's shorts and fight kicks. So it was almost like, it never happened. But I had built up a decent, Twitter following. I also am a huge UFC fan, which obviously is how this happened. I collected UFC cards from 09 through like 15.
Wow.
And I had a bunch of, posts on there, a lot of fighters, pictures, and you name it. And I was never on Instagram. I never signed up for Instagram until Gary V got on the hobby kick many, many years ago. And he reached out to me on Twitter and was like, you gotta, come to my office. These cards you post, and I got questions. I'll buy stuff from you. And I went to his office. I sold him a bunch of stuff. And he's like, are you on Instagram? And I'm like, no, I'm on Twitter. That's where you found me. So I carried over because I had a couple thousand, whatever it was. So it stayed just Cage Lawyer. So that's the deal. I mean, there's nothing crazy to it. It does have a reason. It is Cage. It is UFC, MMA related. Doesn't mean I can hold my own in a cage fight. Probably not. I've never like trained, no mixed martial arts, no. I'm a big dude, but
I'd love to see how Dana White would react to you unionizing the fighters.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when I started tweeting about it, he blocked me. So you already know how he.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you were like on that level. Cool.
Yeah, he blocked, but I'm not blocked anymore. I actually owned the Dana White 2009 rookie 1 of 1 at one point, and I can only imagine what that sells for now. And if we're getting into UFC, it's kind of a side note, but Joe Rogan's cards were nothing. I used to use Rogan's cards, this is before the podcast, use his cards to ship other cards, like as if they were cardboard.
Wow.
Now, those are hundreds of dollars of his cards. It's insane.
Dude, I've been actually trying to find a couple 10s. They're not easy to come across. They're not even easy to really attribute a price to. There's just so little sales.
When those come out in 09, no one was grading. I mean, I graded the first few like John Jones autos. I graded a lot of red ink autos, the round one, their stickers. Very bad. A lot of chipping. They're almost like PMG like. I got an 8.5 on a round one autograph. It was the highest graded one out there, back at 8.5 on a BJ pen. But I sold all that stuff. I wish I held on to it. I had Ronda Rousey's 1 of 1 first finest auto, like her rookie auto 1 of 1. Wow. I sold that, So anyway, there's your cage. There's your stuff. I got a question for you, and we'll let you walk. We'll let you wrap it up with this. The National, days away. All right, what can we expect from DappzSports at the National? What are you doing there? How do people find you? What can we expect from you there? You breaking there?
So we will be in the Breakers Pavilion. We're kind of in this weird spot because we do not break at shows, believe it or not. We've done it in the past. It's not something I enjoy. We've kind of gotten to a scale where I just can't guarantee the customers. It's just it's a infrastructure nightmare, right? To bring that operation over there. So I like to make sure our customers' stuff is shipped the following morning. There's no issues. It's not worth it for us. So we go to these shows strictly to film content, to do giveaways, and that's what we're going to do at the National in a big way. You're going to see collab posts with every influencer in the hobby, and if you're going to be their Cage, I would love to film something and do a little collab post. We can obviously talk about that offline, but please come to our booth. We're going to be giving away signed full-size football helmets, kabooms, Prism hobby boxes, downtowns, you name it. And we're going to have a lot of activations at the actual booth. You come to our booth. I don't want to reveal what they are yet. You play a little game and you win a prize if you actually complete the challenge.
The task. It sounds like it's like a scavenger hunt or maybe like a physical challenge, like old Double Dare episodes. That sounds good.
Dude, Double Dare was like, remember when they introduced that Double Dare with a mountain? There was like a different name to that. That was serious.
I mean, forget it. But as a kid, when I watched it, even though I was a fat kid, I could swear I could do better than everybody who was on it. I would always take the physical challenge, and I would always win. That would be.
Listen, growing up in that era too, like Nickelodeon and all those shows with the ooze, it's just you always wanted to be on TV, and it's so interesting to see now as we're older. It's those shows, I don't know, maybe they still exist, but now they're on YouTube, or now they're doing the Instagram or TikTok 60-second versions of this stuff. So it's really cool to see how content and media has evolved. And I think, going back to what we were talking about earlier, that's what the hobby needs to do too, is start creating this content. whether it's short form on TikTok. You have this new application Kick coming out. So it's getting ahead of some of this stuff. Is Threads going to be around in 90 days or 6 months? I don't know, but test it out, figure it out. Can you get a following on there? I don't know, but
Listen,
everybody's.
If you stand in front of the train of progress, it is going to run you over. I even do 1 minute segment now, the hobby news every Tuesday morning. I mean, I see it with my own kids. I say, what do you want to watch on TV? They said, I don't watch TV. I watch YouTube shorts. I'm like, okay, I guess I got to start making 1 minute long content. You know what I mean? Right. So I see it in my own house.
But if you can make long form, you can make short form. You have to figure it out. It's going to take hours and hours of research and making mistakes and getting better, but progress, not perfection, right?
All right, last question, and I'll let you take it home. You've been to shows, you've been to nationals, you've been to East Coast, West Coast, you've been to mints, you've been to all over the place. One piece of advice for someone who's going to the show, besides a battery pack and bring some water and a sandwich. What do you think?
One piece of advice for going to a show is, especially at the national, it's overwhelming, right? There are so many booths to hit, and don't have that FOMO. I know that somebody posted something about don't overspend on hotels and this and that. Listen, call your friends up, split a room, make sure you are prepared for a long, long day, because there are so many booths to see at the national. Wow. This show is it's not even comparable to any other show during the year. The Mint is an incredible show, but it's 1/10 the size, if that, of the national. So, and also,
I said I was going to let you take it home, but I'm going to. I just thought of something that I've never heard anyone say, and you tell me what you think. Here's advice. In today's day and age, we now judge people from the ground up. The first thing we're looking at with people is what kind of kicks do they have on? People are always looking at them. I think people are looking now like, oh man, I gotta be decked out. I gotta be fresh to death. I gotta buy a new pair of kicks. I gotta get the Kobe's. I gotta get the Jordans. I gotta get the Yeezys. Maybe not, but people are out there. They're putting their outfits together because they want to look good at the show. You buy a new pair of sneakers, you are gonna hate it by the end of the first day.
100%.
Wear something comfortable, man. I know that's an old man advice, but.
No, that's great advice. And I'm the kind of guy who's like opening doors open with my feet and stuff. So I'll put on an expensive pair of sneakers and I go, why did I do this? This was so dumb, right? Make sure, absolutely, Cage. Great advice. Wear a comfortable. I think that's going to be my new advice going forward, is wear a comfortable pair of sneakers that you're going to be in. Maybe bring a change of socks, because your feet are probably going to stink by the end of the day.
Bring a few change. Bring a few change of socks. And there you go. There you have it. Guys, go check out DappzSports. You can obviously find them on Instagram. You can find them on YouTube. You can find them basically anywhere where you get anything. If you just type Dappz, DAPPZ, in Google, they pop up. Their page is there. Find them at the Breakers Pavilion. Sounds like they're going to have some fun activations there. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Cage, it was a pleasure, and I look forward to creating some content with you in person as well, all right?
Yeah, I'll see you there Wednesday. Take care.